He collected 5 tons of Martian soil by himself, all moved into a greenhouse he built with his own hands. He spent several days carefully cultivating half an acre. Then he opened bags of his crewmates' frozen waste. The smell was absolutely overpowering, but he fought through the intense nausea, poured it all in and mixed it thoroughly. He scooped a small amount into the furrows, covered it gently with a thin layer of soil, then cut his only remaining bag of potatoes in half, pressing the exposed flesh directly into the fertilizer so they could absorb the vital nutrients. But when he went to water them, a fatal problem emerged. He didn't have nearly enough water for the entire field, but as a brilliant scientist, he found another way. He siphoned 2 tons of hydrazine fuel from the ship, moved it carefully to his makeshift equipment. He poured catalyst onto a metal tray, successfully separating hydrogen from the fuel. The base had no ignition source available. He looked down at his wooden cross, scraped off a small pile of wood shavings, used wires to spark a flame, carefully placed the burning material into the intake. The hydrogen burned. He had created precious water, but as he celebrated, disaster suddenly struck. After figuring out exactly what went wrong, he tried again, this time more carefully. Success. Precious water created on Mars. Now he could finally irrigate the field and successfully grow his potatoes. With his food supply secured, he finally settled in on the red planet. This is how he ended up here alone. Days ago, his exploration team landed during a massive dust storm. A sensor hit him, sending him flying. When his teammates finally found him, his suit was badly torn. He showed absolutely no signs of life. The ship was shaking violently in the wind. If they didn't leave immediately, they would all certainly die. The commander made the difficult call. They launched the ship without him, but he wasn't actually dead. An alarm woke him the very next day. A metal rod was stuck in his side. His oxygen was running low. He fought through the pain to reach base. He performed surgery on himself. Only then did he realize he'd been tragically left behind. To survive on this barren, desolate planet, food was his absolute priority. Luckily, he was a brilliant botanist and scientist. Using potatoes and his carefully cultivated land, he successfully grew crops inside the greenhouse. An incredible, hopeful breakthrough. Meanwhile, space station personnel noticed something. Signs of human activity on the Martian surface. The only explanation: the man was alive. A billionaire dies suddenly from a heart attack. His assets go entirely to his least favorite son. His wife also receives millions of dollars. The remaining wealth is donated to charity. But his beloved daughter receives absolutely nothing. Annie feels deeply hurt and confused. Still, she chooses to respect his decision. She says nothing and hides her pain. Just when everything seems finally settled, the lawyer privately approaches Annie alone. He hands her a box of her father's personal belongings. Inside, she'll find the answer she's looking for. Annie eagerly opens the box. She finds a USB drive and a single key. She quickly plugs the drive into her laptop. A recorded video from her father begins to play. He instructs her to find a hidden room, a secret he has kept for 30 long years. He warns her repeatedly to tell no one. Following his clues, she drives up to the mountain. She quickly locates the hidden chamber. She inserts the key and unlocks the heavy door, then steps inside without any hesitation. The room inside is pitch black. She fears something might suddenly jump out. At the very far end of the secret room, she discovers another smaller, hidden room. Trembling with fear, she slowly enters. What she sees next absolutely stuns her. A ragged, bearded old man is imprisoned there. Terrified, she turns and runs out. Why would her father do such a thing? She initially considers calling the police, but then remembers her father's serious warning. She hesitates and decides against it. Her brother suddenly seems suspicious of her. She quickly makes up a convincing excuse. Late that quiet night, Annie returns, wearing a mask. Armed for protection this time, she questions the old man directly. He recognizes her immediately, despite the mask. He recalls intimate details from her childhood. Then he finally tells his side of the story. He was once her father's closest friend. After a party 30 years ago, they accidentally struck and killed a pedestrian. He wanted to call the authorities immediately. Her father forcefully stopped him. They moved the body together, deep into the remote mountains. Fearing he might confess someday, her father knocked him unconscious. He woke up locked in this very room. For over 30 long years, Annie isn't sure she believes his story. To prove everything he's saying is true, he reveals why she got no inheritance. Her father secretly had another woman. He left the remaining wealth to her. He gives Annie the woman's exact address. Go and find the truth for yourself. To flee the hitman, the girl had to hide underwater, holding her breath. If David just glanced down, she was as good as dead. She thought her hiding spot was safe, but then his steps stopped right above the plank. With danger near, Annie held her breath and carefully moved the opposite way, but David was unnaturally alert. His steps slowly followed her movement. Paralyzed with fear, Annie froze. She knew if she was spotted, she'd be killed on the spot. Without a second thought, Annie took a deep breath and dove into the icy water. Instinctively, she hooked her foot on a rope to keep from floating up. She figured if she held on long enough, David would eventually leave, but the wait stretched on. The pressure in her chest grew unbearable. Just as she was about to black out and give up, David finally turned from the shore. Thinking she had made it, she never expected the rope around her ankle to suddenly tighten. She struggled with all her might, but the rope held fast, bolted to her foot. In the end, she couldn't break free. Unknown to all, her father was a cop. During a previous raid, he took down a mob boss hideout, cutting off their revenue. The mob boss held a grudge and wanted revenge. He hired a top-tier hitman, targeting the girl's father, but her father was unaware. As luck would have it, he got an urgent call, and had to leave, leaving his daughter home alone. And that one oversight led to an irreversible tragedy. When he got back from his mission, the house was empty. His daughter was gone. Her phone just kept ringing. He immediately knew something was wrong. Without a moment's hesitation, he called in a dive team to search the nearby waters. Soon, they pulled her body from the lake. Seeing his daughter, cold and lifeless, he was utterly devastated. He knew better than anyone. His daughter was a strong swimmer. There was no way this was an accident. He pulled footage from the lake in his home. After reviewing it, the truth came out. The hitman had the wrong person. He was sent to kill him, but mistook his fleeing daughter for him. Even more heartbreaking, the rope at the bottom of the lake wasn't just random debris. It was a trap set by the hitman to make sure his target couldn't escape. Grief gave way to burning rage. He made a silent vow to avenge his daughter, making every killer pay in blood. He gathered his most trusted team, and they devised a plan. They put the mob boss operations under watch, giving him no chance to slip away. In just 3 days, they took down the mob boss and his gang, avenging his daughter at last. Just taking a nap on his bed, a sudden clatter outside jolts him awake. It's year 7 after the apocalypse. His first thought, someone's here to claim his turf. He grabs his shotgun and moves to the window, using a mirror to cautiously peek outside. Spotting an old woman in the yard staring him down, Jack bursts out the door without hesitation. He scans the area, finds no one else lying in wait, then slowly backs inside, ordering them to get lost immediately. But the old woman refuses to budge an inch. She drops her knife to the ground, and pulls out a pouch of gold and jewels, trying to trade it all for some food. But in this post-apocalyptic world, treasures are nothing but useless scrap. Seeing Jack still refusing to trade, the old woman signals her daughter to bring a bag. Seeds, she motions. Seeds for growing food. They can be planted in the soil, but Jack remains completely unmoved, with no other options left. She pulls her daughter forward. Seeing her young, pretty face, the lonely Jack feels his resolve waver. He finally decides to let them inside, but just to be on the safe side, he makes them face the wall, and pats them down, top to bottom. Finding no weapons on them, Jack cuts a slice of potato, and makes a simple potato soup. But it's not a free meal, of course. After they've eaten their fill, he locks the old woman in the next room, leaving only her daughter inside with him. The girl knows exactly what that means. The next morning, the old woman proposes that her daughter marry Jack. More hands would mean more land to farm, but Jack flatly refuses. He knows more land only invites more danger. Sooner or later, raiders will come knocking. He raises his shotgun and orders them to leave, even tossing Annie a potato as they go. But just as they're about to walk away, Annie suddenly stops in her tracks. She picks up a basin and approaches Jack, lathering foam on his face, then reaching for a razor. Jack instinctively raises his gun in response. Annie means him no harm. She only wants to shave his beard, but Jack can't afford to let his guard down. Yet it's this very gesture, this simple, human act, that touches him deeply. He finally decides to let them stay for good. With their help around the farm, the work gets done much faster. But the old woman has other ideas in mind. When the house is finally empty, she starts searching around. She digs through everything but finds no bullets, which means Jack's gun is completely empty. She quickly whispers the news to her daughter, but Annie says the 2 bullets are in his pants pocket. They can take them while he's asleep. The truth is, they know the farm can't sustain 3 people, so they decide to find a way to get rid of Jack. A woman suddenly realizes with horror that her neighbor might not be human. Every single night, she spies on him through her peephole, and without fail, he brings home a different woman. But here's the truly disturbing part. Not one of those women has ever come back out. She's convinced he's murdered them all, and maybe even eaten them. Perhaps he's been using them as a source of food. Determined to prove her terrifying theory, one night, she musters the courage to knock on his door. She lies, saying she's feeling down and alone, and asks if he'd like to come over for a drink. To her surprise, he doesn't suspect a thing. Instead, he's surprisingly kind, comforting and reassuring her. For a moment, she thinks she might have imagined it all. But that very night, he silently slips into her apartment. She freezes instantly, completely paralyzed with terror. Before she can even process what is happening, he leans in close and whispers, threatening her not to move, or he'll chop her up and feed her to the dogs. Under the weight of his chilling threat, she's too terrified to even dare to breathe. Seeing her frozen in fear, he grins with satisfaction. But just as he's about to make his move, she gathers every last bit of strength and slams her laptop directly into his face. She tries desperately to make a run for it, but he grabs grabs her leg and yanks her to the floor. He starts dragging her back toward him. Panicking wildly, she kicks with all her might to break free, and scrambles away, desperate to get out. But he quickly corners her yet again. Her heart sinks into complete and utter despair. To survive this nightmare, she forces herself to wrap her arms around him. The very instant he lets his guard down, she grabs a nearby glass bottle and smashes it into his skull. And just like that, she finally manages to kill him.